Hurricane season. We've got yet another named storm to track in the Gulf of Mexico. Just 2 weeks and a day now past Ida. We're talking about some potential impacts to Louisiana. It's going to be a much different storm. Obviously, Ida hit the state as an intensifying storm at landfall category 4, and produced widespread wind damage. There was certainly surge and some water impacts, but this one, Nicholas, is going to be much more about the potential water. Wind not expected to be much of an issue. All right, let's get to the map, show you what's happening this morning. So here's a look at sort of the enhanced infrared satellite. And if you woke up this morning, you might have thought, wow, this thing looks like it's blowing up out here in the Gulf of Mexico. It looks kind of impressive on the enhanced satellite image this morning. But we kind of get under the hood a little bit. We find maybe not as impressive in terms of organization as what this satellite view might give you. Here's a look at the visible satellite, and I'm going to zoom in. We're going to take a look at a few different things. So early this morning, as I was on 9 News this morning, we had a center of circulation that was really just offshore of northern Mexico. It was estimated to be roughly about 45 miles southeast of the mouth of the Rio Grande River here, right on the border of Mexico and Texas. But it looks like what's happening this morning now, we've got some wind shear in play. There's also some dry air, but the wind shear is kind of beaten up on the low-level center we were tracking this morning, and there may be a new center kind of reforming closer where all these storms developed overnight and this morning. Could see that a little bit better on the radar view. So we were tracking, look right here. We were tracking a center out in here this morning. Look at how that just got yanked to the east-northeast, and so now it's somewhere within this area that we think our center of circulation is kind of redeveloping this morning. Ultimately, the key takeaway is just look at all the rain on the east and northeastern flank of that center of circulation. That's going to be the main concern, and you notice how much drier it is on the west side, and I'll talk about that going forward too. So once the center gets kind of near our longitude and then east of us, as we get on the western side, should be considerably drier. It's while the center is west of us that we could be in play for some heavy rainfall. Already seeing some heavier rains starting to come ashore here in coastal Texas, and this is where the greatest threat for heavy rainfall is expected today, kind of between Corpus Christi and Houston, closer to Galveston. So here's the advisory as of 10 a.m. Maximum wind still at 60 miles per hour. Tropical storm warning now up for the entire coast of Texas. You don't see that too often. Blue is tropical storm watch. There are actually some hurricane watches embedded within this as well, because not out of the question this could make a run at a minimal hurricane before it makes landfall. But again, the primary concern, even in Texas, while they're going to get more wind impacts than we will in Louisiana, primary concern really from Texas into Louisiana is going to be the water and especially the rainfall. So the forecast does bring this ashore late tonight or very early Tuesday. Note the intensity, 70-mile-per-hour wind shown as it nears landfall. So again, going to be right on the cusp of maybe a strong tropical storm, minimal hurricane. But into tomorrow, it starts to hook a right. So by tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, the forecast has it somewhere in the Houston metro, potentially weakening down to a tropical depression at that point in time, and then kind of hooking east-northeast right across Louisiana Tuesday into Wednesday. So as it kind of hangs that right, that's going to feed a lot of the moisture here into South Louisiana, and that's why we have the concern about the rainfall. But again, as we get into the day on Wednesday, hopefully as this starts to come across, we'll start to see some of that drier air rotating in from the west on that drier western side of the system. Right now we have flash flood watches that extend all the way from South Texas, Brownsville, all up along the Texas coastline and into southwest and central Louisiana. So right now, flash flood watch in effect west of the Atchafalaya Basin. That's in effect through 6 p.m. Wednesday. Lafayette, Lake Charles, Alexandria, all the parishes in between. I think it's all but a certainty we'll get one here in southeast Louisiana, probably, if I had to guess, later on today, and that'll likely include our counties in southwest Mississippi as well. Certainly looks like we're in play for some heavy rainfall. Let me give you one model perspective. This is the graph that seems to be doing a decent job in depicting what's going on. So it kind of shows that maybe the center reforming a bit farther north from where it was earlier on this morning, and then tracks that center kind of up to the north. So here we are at 7 o'clock this evening, has it crossing the coastline again, about midway between Corpus Christi and Houston, maybe a little bit closer to Houston. You see some of that heavy rain coming ashore in the Houston metro, so certainly some concerns about the rain potential there. Locally, it just kind of shows scattered showers and storms through the day today, and I'm not terribly concerned about heavy rainfall in our part of the world today. But as we advance this into the overnight and pause it tomorrow morning around daybreak, 6 a.m. Tuesday, you'll note the center is near Houston, but look at this dry air that's wrapping into the circulation on the model, with most of the rain kind of displaced to the east and northeast of the center. So it does bring some of the heavy rain bands into western and southwest Louisiana by daybreak tomorrow, maybe a couple of rain bands impacting our area. And you see those rain bands starting to rotate through the area. This is 1 o'clock tomorrow. The center is moving through eastern Texas at that point in time. And then here's the center on the model between Alexandria and Shreveport. And the concern becomes into the day tomorrow night, maybe in the part of Wednesday, as the center is located kind of northwest of us. That could set the stage for some rain bands, some south to north moving rain bands that could train over the same areas. Now, this particular model is not going gangbuster with the rains in terms of it being real widespread and real heavy, but the potential is there for some of these rain bands that could produce very heavy rainfall. So that's tomorrow night. And you see how these rains just continue to rotate inland, south to north Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Here are a couple of those rain bands setting up. And then during the day on Wednesday, it actually starts to bring in some of that drier air as the center moves a bit to our north. So that's one particular model. So still a decent amount of uncertainty on the rain totals and who's going to get out in the heaviest going forward. Here's the 7-day rainfall outlook from NOAA's Weather Prediction Center. They released this overnight, and which you can see is pretty broad area of some heavy rain forecast from near and offshore Texas into Louisiana and parts of Mississippi. So as I bring this in closer, the Weather Prediction Center has gone with some pretty big numbers, anywhere from 4 to 10 inches of rain across our viewing area. The yellow, that's 4 to 7 inches of rain. Where you get into the shades of orange, that's 7 to 10. And then where you get into kind of this deeper orange and red, that's 10 inches plus. Now, my kind of thinking and looking what I've seen so far is probably not going to see these sorts of totals area-wide. It's probably going to be more in setting up some bands that'll produce these sorts of rain. So I know these numbers are alarming to some of you and they look pretty big. I don't think we're going to get widespread 7 to 10 inch rains, but the potential is going to be there wherever the heavier rain bands set up, that could occur in some locations. So think of this as kind of on the high end of the guidance too, but the potential is there. And predicting where those rain bands set up, that's pretty much impossible at this point in time. So again, they've got anywhere from 4 to 10 inches and even some 10-inch plus totals. That's all on board. I just don't think maybe the rains of that magnitude are going to be widespread. It's going to set up in these corridors where we get the training rain bands. So that same model I was showing you, the graph in terms of showing the projected track, here's what it has. Now, this only takes us through Wednesday evening. Now, Weather Prediction Center is a 7-day product, although I'll tell you that 7-day outlook that had 4 to 10 inches of rain, most of that comes down between now and Thursday morning. The graph here shows some 3 to 5, 3 to 6 inch totals, and then you'll notice in some spots it's more like 1 to 2. So again, it's kind of wherever these corridors set up at the heavier rain bands, I think we could have some problems. So the graph is not overly aggressive with the rain totals. Let's give you a look at what the GFS shows, and again, it's not overly aggressive with the rains. Now, this is the 7-day outlook, but still, you're looking at largely here locally. It's got 3 to 5 inches. Hits southwest Louisiana a little bit harder with the heavier rains. And then finally, I'll give you a look at the European model. And we're still seeing some differences here in the guides, nothing unusual. The European is among the more aggressive. In our local area, it's got more like 4 to 7 inches on average. And then when you get into these pockets where you see sort of the purple to the white, that's 7 to 10 inches plus, and maybe a little bit closer to some of that potential indicated by the Weather Prediction Center. So you see the uncertainty there. There still is question marks on how the rain plays out, where the heaviest rain band's set up, but certainly we're very much in play for some localized heavy rainfall. What could be some flooding rains at times, so we need to be on alert the next few days. Let's give you another perspective on that flood threat. So this is the flood risk from NOAA's Weather Prediction Center. This is the remainder today through daybreak on Tuesday. Noteworthy here is they do have a 4 out of 4 high risk coastal Texas, kind of in the area between Corpus Christi and Houston to near Galveston. These 4 out of 4 high-risk days from the Weather Prediction Center, they've done research to show, number one, these are historically the deadliest flood days when more fatalities occur than any other days. And it's something like 90% of the flood damages monetarily occur on these high-risk days, so that's a big heads up. 3 out of 4, though, into Houston. So that's today through daybreak on Tuesday. As we advance this into tomorrow, this is now Tuesday through daybreak on Wednesday. You get a 3 out of 4 from a moderate risk from Morgan City, Lafayette to Lake Charles and northward. Across the core of the WAFB viewing area in yellow, that's a 2 out of 4. So from Alexandria, Woodville, Mississippi, St. Francisville, Baton Rouge, Gonzales, down to Houma, Thibodaux, Galliano into New Orleans, 2 out of 4. Tomorrow into Wednesday morning, then Macomb, east of Hammond, Slidell, 1 out of 4. But as we advance this into Wednesday into daybreak Thursday, pretty much go area wide with a 3 out of 4, moderate risk of flooding. Now, I still think that comes with some question marks, because you saw in the graph model, right, how it showed as the center kind of was moving north of us on Wednesday, maybe a good bit of dry air on the western side of the system. So I could see where the flood risk may ramp up in our part of the world a little bit sooner than maybe what this product would show. I would say anywhere from tomorrow afternoon into Wednesday, we could be under the gun for some fairly heavy rains wherever those rain bands set up. But still, seeing a 3 out of 4 moderate risk is a pretty significant heads up that there could be some flooding in play. Now, wind is a much, much lower concern with this system. These are the probabilities of tropical storm force winds. That red line, that's the official forecast track. Area-wide, the chances of sustained tropical storm force winds under 10%. I skipped by that. Let me go back to it briefly, and then I'll come back to the storm surge graphic. But the key takeaway is wind is not expected to be a major issue. Let me pull that graphic up just one more time. So again, chances of tropical storm force winds under 10% here locally, around 15% Lake Charles. So even there, a low threat of wind, significant wind impacts. This is really much more about the rain here locally, so not terribly concerned about that. In that sense, that's why this storm is going to be much, much different from Ida, and of course just a much lower intensity, but it's the water this time around. Now, in terms of the storm surge, greatest storm surge expected along the mid and upper Texas coast. You can see this area from Matagorda Bay up to San Luis Pass, Texas, 3 to 5 feet. Up around Galveston Bay, 2 to 4 feet of surge is forecast. That extends up to Sabine Pass, the state line. And then parts of Cameron Parish extending east along Vermilion Parish may get up to 1 to 3 feet of storm surge is what is shown. So it's not to say there won't be any storm surge here in Louisiana. There's going to be some, but it shouldn't be a major impact for most. Again, the more significant surge impact along the mid and upper Texas coastline. I did want to show you, it's not the only thing we're tracking. Nicholas, not the only thing we're tracking the tropics. We've got an area here that's kind of east of the Bahamas right now. As that lifts up to the north off of the U.S. East Coast, that's given a 50% chance of development, but you can see expected to lift north, so we don't have to worry about that one in the Gulf of Mexico. And then way out, there's a tropical wave that's getting ready to come off Africa. The Hurricane Center, though, following the model guidance, already bullish on this one, showing an 80% chance of development. This one may take a farther south track, so we'll keep an eye on that. It's peak hurricane season. No surprise that we'd be seeing something like this in the deep tropics, but still just a reminder, there's more to track. Right now, just a few showers in the area. Most of us are dry at this hour. We've had some showers lifting across southwest Mississippi, a sprinkler or two showing up around Metro Baton Rouge right now, and then you can see some more rain lurking offshore, and especially offshore Texas. So today we're looking for scattered showers and storms, but not terribly concerned about heavy rainfall today. Got rain chances today, 60%. Some of the latest guidance coming in indicating that might even be a little too high on the rain chances. The main threat for the rain for us is going to be Tuesday into Wednesday. What's left of Nicholas is going to be dissipating, the center at least, into Wednesday. So once we get beyond Wednesday, the impacts of Nicholas will be waning, but still looking at pretty good rain chances through the end of the week. I've got them around 60% Thursday through Saturday, 50% Sunday, and then hopefully a little closer to normal into early next week. But bottom line is still a fairly active pattern throughout the upcoming week in terms of rain chances. But the main concern is Tuesday into Wednesday as Nicholas moves inland, tracks a little bit to our west and northwest, and could deliver some locally heavy rainfall. Keep up with the latest. If you've got a First Alert weather app, you should have got a little bit of an alert. About 15 minutes ago, we updated the 10 a.m. advisory on the storm. So we'll be posting those. Keep up with the rains, interactive radar, any watches or warnings, those will show up in the app. Lots that you can do to keep up with it. With that, that was all I had to show you on Nicholas. I'll take a peek down. For those of you watching on Facebook, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments, and we will go from there. So just give me a second here to load things up on Facebook and see what questions, if any, you guys may have. Almost there. I'm loading this on 2 different pages, so give me just a second here. All right, let's see what we've got, if anything. So far, reading a lot of comments, no real questions. All right, let's take a peek over here. Connie says, is there anything that could possibly push that thing back around into the Gulf? No, that appears unlikely. This is Nicholas kind of rounding the periphery of an area of high pressure, so if you can imagine a clockwise circulation. And that's in essence what's going to take it up to the north and eventually to the northeast. As it gets inland, we think it's going to weaken fairly quickly. So no, we're not really concerned about it moving back over the Gulf. So again, it's the rain. That's the main concern. Rain impacts in Beaumont, Port Arthur, Lake Charles area. Let me see if I can get back to my rain graphic here and give you a look at what we've got. Find the rain graphic. Let's see, where'd it go? All right. All right, so you asked about Beaumont, Port Arthur, and Lake Charles. So kind of the lighter shade of orange from the Weather Prediction Center at least is 7 to 10 inches of rain. And then when you get into the darker orange, almost bordering on red, that's 10 inches plus. So certainly some 5 to 10 inch rains in that area, are very possible. And we could have some bullseyes topping 10 inches in those spots. It's a similar story whether you go from Baton Rouge to Lake Charles to Houston. It's really a matter of where these heaviest rain bands set up and where they train for maybe a number of hours. We could get these rain totals that could approach double digits, maybe even exceed it in spots. I don't think that's going to be widespread, I think that's going to be localized, but that's our concern. And those sorts of things are, just beyond our level of skill in forecasting. What city or neighborhood's going to get hit the hardest? That's why it's kind of better to think of this on a regional level than trying to focus on a particular city. Just understand 5 to 10 inch rains are probably very much in play anywhere from coastal Texas into South Louisiana, and then there could be some bullseyes exceeding 10 inches. Wettest day in Baton Rouge on Wednesday. I'm kind of thinking more Tuesday night into the first part of Wednesday. It's going to be wettest here locally. And maybe kind of Tuesday night into early Wednesday could be the wettest. As I walk through that model run that I showed you earlier, this graph model, let me pull this up one more time. Now, maybe underdoing the rain coverage a bit, but what I think it's kind of latching onto that is the right idea. So let me show you. So this is 9 o'clock Tuesday night. It's got the center here, south of Shreveport. Not worrying too much about exactly where the center is, but this idea that it's kind of drier on its south and western flank, which kind of matches what is already happening with it right now. And we know there's some wind shear in play, which kind of displaces the rain off to the east. There is some drier air that's being entrained on its western side. So assuming that pattern holds, this kind of makes sense. And that's why, even though, and I mentioned the Weather Prediction Center has that 3 out of 4 moderate risk in our area daybreak on Wednesday going forward into the day on Wednesday. They might be a little bit slow in timing. I think the heavy rain threat could arrive here a little bit sooner, maybe Tuesday afternoon, evening into early Wednesday. So just keep that in mind. If this dry slot remains in place and in play, we could actually see things improving a bit during the day on Wednesday. All right. Couple of questions here. Sam saying, I think this could carry a low risk of tornadoes. Yeah, that's always a threat. It is one graphic I forgot to put in. Let me see if I could pull this up for you real quick. Give me just a second. So this is going to show you the flash flood watch right now at first, but what I'm going to do is show you the severe weather threat. All right, so this is ignoring my timestamp up here. Ignore that. This is today's severe weather threat. So the yellow is a 2 out of 5 slight risk of severe weather. Galveston down here to just north of Corpus Christi. Houston under a 1 out of 5, a marginal risk. So that's today. What I'll do now is I'll change this to tomorrow's severe weather threat, and understanding most of what is shown there is to cover that risk of a few tornadoes. And so as we advance this into tomorrow, you can see what the Storm Prediction Center has outlined. A 1 out of 5 marginal risk, Galveston, Houston, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Lake Charles to Lafayette, down to Morgan City to near Houma. That's where they see the greatest risk of a few tornadoes potentially occurring tomorrow into Wednesday morning. So kind of hugging near and south of I-10. That's what the Storm Prediction Center says. But that's not to say we couldn't get isolated tornadoes farther inland. That's just the most likely location. So that's always a threat with landfalling tropical systems, no doubt about it. Yeah, where is landfall? Somebody asked. Again, that's going to likely be somewhere between Corpus Christi and Houston. Now, let me pull this up and show you. So you see the forecast track. A couple things to note here. Number one, because this is a track that's paralleling the coastline through the day today, understand small changes left or right can make a big difference in where it comes ashore. On a track that's parallel to the coast, you know, any deviation to the left, it comes ashore a lot sooner, right? Any deviation to the right, it may take a while longer to come ashore. But unlike Ida, where, you know, a small shift in the track kind of made a big difference in the impacts because we had those core winds that were near the center, that the most destructive winds that were near and east of the center. This time around, you know, small shifts in the track aren't going to make that big of a difference because we're more worried about the rain this go around than the wind. So those shifts in the track tend to impact more the wind impacts than the rain. So knowing that there's going to be plenty of rain on its east and northeastern flanks, I wouldn't worry too much about the exact landfall location. All right, let's see. Yeah, a couple of people asking about could the center come closer to Louisiana. Sure, it could come farther up the Texas coast. We don't see anything that brings us into Louisiana. And again, just back to that point of regardless of exactly where this comes in, all that moisture on its eastern side is going to be moving north and northeast. That's the primary concern. So even as we see you know, some center reformations like we've seen this morning, it's still kind of a disjointed system because there's that wind shear in play. That's kind of typical. Don't worry about that too much. In the end, that's ultimately not going to change the primary impact very much, and that's the rainfall. All right, let's see. Yeah, Leslie, you know, mentioned being hard hit in Tangipahoa Parish. You know, thinking about you guys, you know, I totally get that. I know you went through a lot, no doubt about it. So in Tangipahoa Parish, just like the remainder of the area, the concern is still the rainfall. Okay, so it's just a matter of where those rain bands set up. So right now, the outlook from the Weather Prediction Center has Tangipahoa Parish more in the 4 to 7 inch range. But you know, that's our main concern going forward. Like I said, at the top, for anybody that missed it, right now, southeast Louisiana not under a flash flood watch, but I think there's a decent chance we'll see one coming. All right. I notice I'm not up here on camera anymore. I don't know if we had a glitch or if you could still hear me or not. But anyway, I pretty much covered all the points here that we needed to. So we're going to be tracking this flood threat. I don't think it's going to be a real widespread gangbuster sort of rainfall where everybody gets hit hard. It's going to probably be in maybe some corridors where some heavy rain bands set up. Main threat's going to be tomorrow night into at least a part of Wednesday. It's 10:31. Jeff Morrow will be on at noon with the latest. He'll get you through noon, 4 and 5. Jay will be on at 6 and 10 tonight. Follow us online, on air for that. We'll be online in our weather app. All the platforms will have them covered. But for now, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll have an intermediate advisory at 1 o'clock, a new full advisory at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Stay safe.